Welcome back to Beyond the Helmet. I'm your host, Steve McGrath, and today, man, my background is being topped. I hope you're watching this on YouTube and you're not just listening to it on iTunes or Spotify or wherever else, because today, 14-year NFL vet, two-time Super Bowl champ, a man who has become an author, a speaker, he's a trainer, he's in the D2 Football Hall of Fame, probably in the College Football Hall of Fame soon. It is none other, man that wears many hats, Mr. Tyrone Poole. Tyrone, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing excellent, Steve. Thank you for having me on the show. So it's an honor, man. It's just an honor just to be able to be seen and not viewed. So people may have to think about that one a little bit, but it's an honor to be seen because that means I'm still living. But to be viewed means that I'm probably somewhere in a pine box. So, so it's good to be seen, not viewed.
Amen to that. And I'm sure people will be seeing you all over the place, given that you have your hand in so many different things. As someone that is, known who you were as a former Patriots player, where you got those 2 Super Bowl rings, man, you haven't stopped. Even after you've retired, I see your social media. It's all about motivation, information. You're still in phenomenal shape, posting workout videos. I mean, today, given all the excuses you could have to not be focused and driven, what's driving you?
And it's like a gift that keeps on giving. I've learned that a lot of people, the reason why they stop living, so to speak, because what they were doing, they saw it as a job. They saw it as a job. But what I see within myself, my gifting is my work. And your work is something that you can never stop doing. You can never stop doing because you're always evolving it. You're always evolving it. You're always making it better. And the things that I did in my 20s help people in their 20s. Now I'm in the upper level. So now, hey, it's a whole new world out there of people that I can help. So, and then on top of still helping those who are trying to find their way to the younger people. So my work is who I am, and your work, you cannot separate it. Your job, you can go from job to job to job to job, and they can train you how to perform that job. But your work is who you are, and your work is never finished until, like I said, you're being viewed. But right now, I'm still being seen, so my work is still being written.
So how do you balance trying to, your message, to put it very, very vaguely, is positivity. That I would say to just put a one-word stamp on it. So how do you just go about figuring out what message you want to put out there, and even then, what medium? Because there's so many different ways to reach and interact with people today.
Well, wow. What I try to do is understand principles of life. There's principles and then there are experiences. Okay. Everybody's experience is different. Again, your backdrop is an experience. My backdrop is an experience, but our conversation is the principle. So instead of focusing on the backdrops, because everybody's backdrop is different, I want to focus on the principle. So that helps me to understand that in life, people just want the truth. They want, how can I be the best version of myself? And if we give the principles, which we all have done something, that when we extract, as they say, hindsight being 2020, you look back, oh, now I see how that played out. Now we see the principle, the undergirding, like you said, the undergirding, the thing that really makes it move. It's the principles of life. So everybody wants security. Everybody wants, they want to enjoy life. They want joy. And that's the principle. Joy is the principle. Happiness is the experience, I think, because people can control your happiness, but your joy is the principle. That's who you are. So if you can learn how to be joyful, then, you basically control yourself. So that's what I try to do, is just, how can I give a principle of life and let it go and help whoever it can help.
I love it, man. I appreciate what you put out there. I got to make sure I like all the posts. Help spread the word, help that algorithm. But when I look at your website, whether it's your social media pages or if I go to your website, I see common phrases like "work that thing," or you have ACT highlighted in the word practice. So you're certainly pretty clever when it comes to just trying to get that message down to something that's very easy to reiterate. So what sort of, how do you think about that? And what into work that thing has been the theme for a while now. So what's the story behind that?
Well, I'm glad you asked that as well. Work that thing actually came about. My daughter, I have my daughter, she's 21, just turned 21. I'm like, where's my gun? Make sure I got my gun loaded. She's legal now. So 21, I got to watch out. But she's a very, very, very intelligent, smart young lady. But I have a son, he's 15. He's a sophomore in high school, plays football and runs track. My daughter runs track, 400, 200. So when my daughter, I coach my kids. I coach my kids from the third grade up until I said, okay, I got to release them to the high school. And even then I was kind of like, got my binoculars. I'm still looking over the fence, and still coaching. But my daughter, she would run summer track. And that's what I could really coach her and my son. So I would, let her warm up and I'll come back. Because, every athlete sometimes need to have that silence, that isolation time where you're focused. And so I would go off and I'll come back and she would be finished. And I said, okay, how you feel? Are you ready to run? She said, yes, I'm ready. I said, okay, then let's go work that thing. So what work that thing means is basically whatever you do, you go out there, you put the best effort into it. You overcome it. Don't let nothing hinder you. Don't let nothing stop you. If you work that thing, if you go out there, my daughter running the 400 meters, if she go out there and work the principles of running the 400, she's going to have a pretty doggone good race. So go work that thing. Go work the principles of life. Go work whatever it is you're going through, what's happening, work it, and you will end up better than where you thought you would have ended up.
So you mentioned principles a couple times already so far, and joy definitely is one of them, as discussed. One thing that I told you before we started here is just how perseverance to me, it's like the number one trait that someone needs to have to get that success. So when you think about principles, let's say perseverance is one, joy's in there. How many, what comes to mind as things that anyone, not just a pro athlete, but anyone needs to be able to achieve any sort of meaningful success in their life?
Ooh, well, right away, 3 C's. Have confidence. You got to believe in yourself. Got to believe in yourself. Because if you don't believe in yourself, as they say, then who will? You got to have confidence. And then you got to have courage. You can't be scared to try new things. The one thing I did learn while playing in New England, what made us so good, we were able to adapt. We adapted. So sometimes I use the phrase, I'm like water. I never change who I am to a point. I just conform to my environment. I'm still going to be water. If I got to be solid, I'll be ice, but I'm still water at the end of the day. You put heat to me, I turn to vapor, but I'm still, it's a liquid form of me. So you got to have confidence and you got to be courageous, because there are going to be some times when you may hear all the noise around you. Other people say, man, the last 10 straight people that tried this, they failed. So you can't go off for what you hear. You got to have confidence in yourself. Say they all failed, but that's until I came up. A lot of people call it like confidence. They call it cockiness or whatever, but I don't call it cockiness. I call confidence, because if you believe in yourself, that's being courageous. You encourage yourself. And then the last one, you got to be consistent. Just be consistent, consistently in whatever it is you do. If you like to read, then consistently read. If you like to run, consistently run. If you like to smile, consistently smile. Whatever it is you do, be consistent at it. And if you do that, I'm like, you can't help but to fall forward. And sometimes it's just that falling forward. And in football, they fall forward and that's as far as they can go. And then they lean the football out there and, touchdown. Or when they run in track, then they lean forward. Sometimes that separates, you from being in first place to being in second place. So again, confidence, courage, and consistency. And I think you give yourself a heck of an opportunity to finish in the top of your race.
Yeah, I love it. So I want to ask a little bit more now, just getting into your football journey. So, if I have this right, before you even have a chance to get all these trophies and everything that you're able to accomplish, I mean, the college career for a minute there looked like it might not happen. Do you mind taking us back to maybe before you had the courage and the confidence that you have now? When you were just a young kid, what was it like for you just trying to figure out what that college scene was going to be for you?
Well, I'm gonna say this, that I'm a firm believer that you will be, well, what you are now, you will be in the future. And what you are in the future, you were that in the past. So the confidence, the courage, and consistency, I probably didn't know that I was operating off of it. Because I came up in a situation, on the other side of the tracks, and I thank God that I had the opportunity to explore the have not and the have. So I feel like I'm a bridge, and that's probably where my positivity and the things I try to do. I'm like a bridge. I try to connect people who want it, people who got it, or people who got it who don't understand it. So, but I think I probably had it, the seeds of it when I was young. But the football thing, I'm like, it's just, again, a lot of people don't know I quit football in high school, and it was, my decision. And again, that's why I also feel like having leaders, mentors. I think the greater your ability, the greater you got to have mentorship, because mentally to be able to handle a great physical machine takes a lot. And I quit football in high school, and I come to practice late, and didn't tell the head coach, and it was like the last period, so to speak, and of school, before school was out. They have periods: first period, second period, third. So it's like the last period, and the teacher said I had to stay after, and I'm like, oh man. I had none of my teammates in there. Hey, can you tell the coach or whatever? So I'm stuck. So I end up, after staying in the class to finish up some work, I'm hustling to the locker room, put my stuff on, I'm running, buckling and all that, trying to get down to practice. And the worst feeling, I don't know about anybody watching and listening, but the worst feeling in the world, I don't know if you ever felt like this, Steve, but if you have, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The worst feeling is to walk into a room and you the last one, and they already got stuff going, and you walk in and they stop, pause, and everybody look at you. It's like that is exactly what happened. I walk onto the football field, they're stretching, and on top of that, in my senior year, so I'm one of the captains that's up at front. So I got my row. So the head coach, really lets me have it, man. And being a young kid, again, with great talents, but didn't have really the mentorship. And I thought he was trying to, clown me, so to speak. But I didn't understand until later on. Wisdom always comes after a situation. I said, okay, only reason why he was getting on me like that was because I was a leader. I was a captain, and I had set a bad example. So to keep everybody else in line, sometimes you have to chew out the person that's in leadership, but I didn't understand that. So I got mad. I'm like, after he finished talking, I'm walking off the field, and we were so talented back then at my high school. We produced a lot of great athletes coming from LaGrange High School, LaGrange, Georgia. And I take my helmet off and I throw it down, and I walk off the field, and I'm thinking he's gonna call me back. I kept walking, still didn't hear no voice. And I'm getting close to the entrance of where we exit the football field, and I'm like slowing down now, because I had a steady, fast pace in the beginning. Didn't hear no voice, so now I'm like slowing down, because I knew I had made a mistake. And I'm like, okay, say Tyrone, so I could turn around and say, go back to practice. But he didn't say anything. And I went to the locker room, took my equipment off, and all my friends and teammates were saying, Tyrone, you need to go back and apologize, man. Go back and apologize. And at the same time, on the other shoulder, I got some of my teammates saying, boy, look at here. Boy, he was rolling on you, man. He made you look like, so now like, hold on, he did what? So there was one side of me saying, okay, go back. You say you're sorry, you're talented. And then I got the other side said, no, he clowned you, make him pay. So I ended up not going back. I listened to the wrong shoulder at that point in time, but it was only a setup for a great opportunity. And a lady who was an alumnus from Fort Valley State, who was a teacher at LaGrange High School. Her son had played football. He had, of course, graduated a long time ago. And she asked me, she said, hey, Tyrone, where are you going to college? I said, I don't know. Her name was Miss Hurd. I said, Miss Hurd, I don't know where I'm going. I'm nowhere. So I'm already thinking, okay, I guess I got to get me a 9-to-5 job. Let me go work a fast food restaurant. I had already worked at the Golden Arches, so to speak, during the summer. So I'm like, maybe I got to go back to the Golden Arches and work again. But she says, would you like to go to Fort Valley? And I didn't hear nothing but Fort Valley State College. And all I heard was another opportunity to put their helmet on, another 4 years to put their helmet on, and another 4 years to run track. And I said, let's go. So I went to Fort Valley, took the admissions test, and walked on for football, earned a scholarship, got a full scholarship in football. Then I went out for track and ended up getting a full scholarship for track. And, so I would, it was good. I would take some of that money and send it back to my parents, back home. So they could, because I knew where I came from. We didn't have much. So whatever I could put together from my athletic scholarships, I would use that to buy what I needed, equipment, and pay for. But the extra money, I just basically would send half of it home, and I would use the other half to buy equipment and things that I needed. Maybe a television here to make my room look pretty cool, but yeah, so that's my story, so to speak, how I got to Fort Valley.
God, there's so much there. What a terrific story. The part two about your coach chewing you out, just bias being in the New England area, just thinking about Belichick having to chew out Brady to set the precedent that anyone can get chewed out at any given time if that guy can get chewed out. But one of the things you said early on about you wanting to be that bridge from the other side of the tracks, I think that just rings true so much as to who you are and have been that this whole way, given everything that you do on social media and all the things that you've put your mind and energy into. I don't mean to pivot so hard from the football stuff back to that, but when you think about anyone that's disenfranchised, is it the lack of mentorship that you alluded to, something that you had personally dealt with? Or is it more lack of information, that knowing what else is out there? I mean, at the end of the day, and this has nothing to do with race or poverty. It's just for those that don't ultimately find a way to get to the next level in life. What do you think ultimately is the biggest problem?
I think what you just said is like the wet and the water. You can't jump in the water without getting wet, and you can't get wet unless you jump in the water. So when you said mentor and information, it's like the wet in the water. The mentor is there to give you the information, and you get the information from a mentor. So someone who has done it, someone who has seen it. And that's why it's so important. You have to know who you are, and what skills you possess. It's just like anyone, someone who knows they have $500,000 in their bank account and they're going to buy a house. Well, pretty much right off the bat, if somebody comes to you and say, hey, I got $1 million house for you. Oh man, I can't get that. I don't have that. But if somebody come in and say, hey, I got a $485,000 house, okay, I want to listen to that. So again, we're listening to people who don't understand who we are. and we're trying to become something that we're really not. So if we know who we are, then we know the right mentors to go find, and we get the appropriate information that will help us overcome our situation. Because I believe this, Steve, that life, again, it's about principles. The balloon in my days were like red, say like high school or college, it was red. Well, in someone else's time, the current college athletes and high school athletes, the balloon is green. Don't get caught up on the color. Know the principle. It's a balloon. It's latex. You put air in it. Those are principles. So if you understand the principles, then you can expand your balloon however you want. But you got to know the proper information.
All right. Well, one principle I think that comes through playing sports or doing anything challenging is iron sharpening iron, something that always is applicable to anything that you're doing, and working with some other person that's going to push you and have that, the iron on iron contact. So it would take 7 hours to go year by year, which I would love to do. I don't know if our listeners would love it if we did it. So I'm going to sum this up on a very high level. You get a chance as a defensive back now, your first decade in the NFL. Kerry Collins, Peyton Manning, Brian Griese, Tom Brady. Talk about guys that could sling the ball.
I know, right?
And this is an abbreviated list, but for wide receivers, just real quick. Muhsin Muhammad, Marvin Harrison, Deion Branch, Troy Brown, David Givens, David Patton, Rod Smith, Ed McCaffrey, Shannon Sharp, Marcus Pollard, Don Beebe, Randy Moss, Jerry Porter, just to name a couple guys that you were in practice with.
Yeah.
When you think about iron sharpening iron, and this, again, just glossing over an entire career, what is it about going against the best? Because now, for more context too, you're what, like 5'8", 5'9", one of the shorter corners. Going against Randy Moss might have been a little tougher considering his height there. But when you were practicing amongst guys that were particularly gifted in their craft as well, how did it change you in your approach to the game?
Well, again, I've learned adaptability. You have to be like an amoeba. You have to be able to adapt. Like I said about water, you got to be able to change the trajectory at times, or what you're trying to fit into. So again, it's about information. You got to know who is who. What is this person's strength? And you got to also know yourself. And I start with myself. Then we go to, Tom Brady and Peyton Manning and Brian Griese. Of course, his dad, playing with the Miami Dolphins back in the day, Bob Griese. So, even, Brian had, opportunity to learn information from a great mentor. But for myself, I knew my strengths. I could jump at a vertical. I had strength. My arms were longer than probably the average person, my height, 5'8", 5'9". I had speed, I had lateral quickness. So with understanding the gifts that I have, it now turns into like guerrilla warfare. Okay, what are their strengths and what are their weaknesses? I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses. Okay, well, hey, Randy may not get out the jam. He may not start fast. He can get out the jam, but as Randy gets going, he's running, he picks up speed. So how do I want to play Randy? Do I want to try to get physical with him and try to slow him down completely? Because the quarterback only has a certain amount of time that he has to throw the ball. So now I'm and Mike Vrabel, they have already penetrated those tackles and they're bearing down that quarterback. And really, I don't have to cover too long. So understanding the tendencies of my opponent and utilizing my strength. It doesn't matter, who it is. Muhsin Muhammad, big receiver. He's a big body guy, possession type of receiver. He's not going to run away from you. So Michael Irvin, playing against some of these guys as well as being teammates with these guys. But Michael Irvin, an example, he's big and strong. He wants you to get physical with him so he can push off on you. So, okay, don't get physical with him. Jerry Rice, he doesn't like physicalness to a point. So let's try to slow down and throw that timing off of that West Coast offense. But going and practice against guys who are very talented, it sharpens you up. you may say, okay, hey, I'm gonna try this, and if I can get Randy on this particular move, then I know I can get everybody else. And so we always try to go against certain guys. Even if it was a younger guy, if he was a real fast guy and quick, well, hey, let me go up against this guy. But most of the time we try to go up against others that have been sharpened themselves, polished receivers. So it sharpens our skill. Because we know they're going to lean into their routes. They're going to sell it to a point that you would never probably see another type of receiver do that. So, playing with Peyton Manning, with Kerry Collins, of course, both of us being our first year at Carolina, he's learning, I'm learning, going up against him, knowing that Kerry Collins got that long wind up, kind of like a pitcher, kind of gives you an opportunity to kind of get back into position, to knock the ball down, steal a heck of a quarterback. You got Peyton Manning. He's very smart. He's going to give you some dummy calls, and he's going to go through his route progressions. You got Tom Brady. He's going to have the offense fired up and ready to go out there and play beyond their belief in themselves. So, it was a challenge, but it was a good challenge because you knew that you were going against the best. And I'm a firm believer that all championship teams, they prepare themselves, like we're saying here, Steve, iron sharp as iron. You're supposed to get your best work in practice, and the game is supposed to be easy.
And I thought Jerry Rice was a pretty good, at securing the ball until I saw a certain highlight of a certain young cornerback punching that ball out.
Yeah, man, that's memorable. That's memorable. I think that game in itself, Steve, I think I caused, praise God, I had 2 turnovers. They had 3 turnovers total. I'm going back, replaying the game. The 49ers had 3 turnovers all day that day in the red zone, close to the goal line, and 2 of them was cause of me. Punching the ball out, Jerry Rice, which I believe Jerry just, kind of like the Leon Lett thing. You running and you're about to score, and all of a sudden Don Beebe comes up and knocks the ball out, man. And I think Jerry like, I'm about to score. Hey, I do it all the time. I'm about to score. And then all of a sudden you just feel that fist come between your ribs and your elbow, and boom, that ball goes where it needs to go. Luckily, it went out the back of the end zone, because if it had gone out at the 1 yard line or the 1 inch line and not gone through the end zone, then the 49ers still would have had the ball, but on the 1 yard line. But it just so happens I punched it. And believe it or not, we practiced that stuff. So it was all like reaction. And John Taylor, he's about to score, and I hustle and catch up and, rip the ball out of him. And Sam Mills, God rest his spirit, picks it up, and boom, next thing you know, we beat the 49ers, who had just beaten the San Diego Chargers in the Super Bowl in a very close game. So, but yeah, it was good, man. Good. That was a good game.
I wanted to ask a little bit about the Patriots era. And since you mentioned Sam Mills, I mean, on some level, it had to have been bittersweet for you to go up against the Carolina team, with the Sam Mills story. And I'm sure you had so many other connections to guys on that team and people in that organization. I know when you're playing the game, you got to block that stuff out. But do you recall any certain memories of, once that game ended, what you were doing, who you talked to, or even in the months after?
Yeah, man, I'm telling you, it was like ironic, man. It's like in 1995, being the first defensive selection for the Carolina Panthers, and that's big in itself, Steve. I'm like, these guys could have picked a defensive lineman, a linebacker to build their defense around, but they picked me. So I'm like, wow, man. But I say that to say the former owner, Jerry Richardson, sat down in our very first team meeting, and he says he has a 10-year to get the Carolina Panthers into the Super Bowl. And of course, I wasn't there in 2003, but I was there as a Patriot And how ironic is that? It wasn't exactly 10 years, but it was doggone close, man. So to see him on the field and congratulate him and all of their success, and, to still see Muhsin Muhammad and, the receivers coach, Richardson, to see those guys there, and some of the guys still in the front office, Donnie Shell, to see Mark Carrier, who now is in the front office, but was a player at the time. Yeah, it was bittersweet. It's almost to the point where you're like, okay, man, do I have to play against these guys, man? Anybody but Carolina, man. It's like family. You're like, anybody but my brother, man. I don't want to go against my brother. But hey, like you said, hey, is when you step between those white lines, it could be your mother out there. They say, Mama, after the game, Mama, I didn't mean to tackle you like that, but it's just a game, Mama. Now what are we eating? But but no, playing in that Super Bowl as a Patriot, to be there playing against a team that I heard the owner say, 10 years. This is 1995. I have a 10-year plan to get the Carolina Panthers into the Super Bowl. So like I said, I just happened to have that Patriot playing for arguably one of the best and greatest head coaches, I think, in football, Bill Belichick. So it was a bittersweet.
Just one thing about that Patriots team that went, no disrespect to any of your former teammates, but from an outsider's perspective, when you look at that roster, I think for the first time, maybe it was the best secondary that you had been a part of. And that's with, Ty Law being who he is, Rodney Harrison being who he is. No one should feel ashamed being second best compared to this group where you are one of the four. How much did that change just playing the position, knowing that you have a feared monster safety that could, kill anyone that he was trying to, and then Ty Law locking it down on the other side? I believe you had 6 picks. So certainly in the stats column, it showed up. But did that change the way that, you approached your craft, considering the level of respect everyone else was getting in your group, positional group?
And you know what? Everybody in that secondary, from Ty Law, Eugene Wilson, Asante, came in and played nickel and eventually became a starter as well. Then, of course, Rodney Harrison, he was the spark plug. I feel like you always got to have that spark plug. You always got to have that person that, man, they bring their lunch pail and their energy every practice. And that's who Rodney was. He was that guy that brought the energy, and we saw it in practice, and the fans saw it on the football field. Now, I will say this about myself and Ty Law. It used to be a time when, I don't know if they still have it, but they still have the archives. The NFL Network would have these, the top 10 best ever quarterbacks, the top 10 best ever receiver tandems. Well, they had one where they called it the top 10 quarterback tandems. They had the top 10 best duo receivers, so to speak. But Ty Law and I got mentioned in that actual broadcast of the NFL top 10 tandems. Now, we didn't make the list, but we made like the honorable mentions, so to speak. And, to actually see that, because I'm like, when you think about tandems, I go back, and being a football fanatic myself, I remember the Cleveland Browns, the dog pound, the dog, they had a little mask on and everything. And Hanford Dixon and Frank Minifield, man, I'm like, those guys used to lock it down. And now me and Ty being mentioned with those guys, man, and then they would say Dion and whoever else is on the other side or whatever. But when I first got there, Ty was, had I believe a lot of stress on himself, and he probably enjoyed it. But he would play left, he would play right, he would play left, and he would play right. And when I got there, Ty stayed on his side, I stayed on my side, and whoever we got, that's who we got. But the one thing I did like the fact is that I'm a man-to-man corner, and Ty's a man-to-man corner. And I think that's why I played my best ball, because when you, again, are doing something that is not you, like I mentioned, the 500,000 and $1 million, or, whatever the case may be, if you don't know who you are, then you're not going to be your best. And Iron sharpens iron, like you said, Steve. Ty would push me. He would get an interception. I'm like, man, I would see how the coaches praising Ty. And I'm like, man, you know what? I got to get some of that praise, man. So I'm like, I'll go out and I'll get myself 2 interceptions or whatever. And then Ty come back and, hey, man, I can't let you outdo me. And, of course, we got Rodney sitting there knocking people out. And we got Eugene just backing down the middle of the field, but just protecting the middle of the field. But I think we probably had arguably one of the best secondaries that probably come through New England, because we manned it up. We go to Miami, it's hot, and we manning it up, man. We're like, Coach Belichick, man, tap out. Can we get a cover 2? Give us a cover 2 or something, let her breathe a little bit. But no, we had a phenomenal defense. Willie McGinnis, Big Ted Washington. Man, you can't forget Big Ted. I'm like, they taking 2 people every time to block Ted, and Brewski, and man, Ty Warren. We had a lot of good guys on that defense, and we managed to pull it off.
Absolutely. Like I said, growing up in the area, it was a real joy, to put it mildly, to for 20 years be able to just sit back and enjoy everything that's happened under the Kraft family and Coach Belichick's tutelage. And there might have been a quarterback that was a mainstay for a while too.
Was it? You sure?
But I and of course I still love Tom Brady. I hope all the success in the world for him, no matter where he's playing, no matter what he's doing. But I mentioned some of the quarterbacks, the receivers you had played with as we get closer to winding down here. Jim Mora, phenomenal coach. Of course, we mentioned Coach Belichick. I mean, you have Dom Capers is the head coach in Carolina. Vic Fangio is your D coordinator multiple times. Goes on, of course, to be a head coach as well. And Coach Shanahan. So just like your list of teammates, your list of coaches is just as incredible. When you think about what makes a great coach and what it takes to be on great teams, Super Bowl winning teams, can you put your finger on a couple? Maybe there's one main thing, but what sort of stands out for what's a prerequisite to be successful on that level? We've talked a lot about the individual journey, doing what you need to do to put yourself in the best position to win. But when you look at the individual that's trying to guide a group of men,
I don't think it's one thing. It's like everything is tied into something else, that produces something else. But I would say I've learned a lot from those coaches. So when you alluded to in the beginning about coaching at Clark Atlanta, there are a lot of the coaches that I played up under that I see myself emulating. Mike Shanahan, for example. Mike Shanahan treated the guys, he treated us like men. Mike just had his rules. These are the rules. Break them, you got hell to pay. Coach Belichick, he was a guy that, you got to be smart. You got to know what your opponent is doing. You got to be adjustable. Dom Capers, got to dot the I's, you got to cross the T's. If you're supposed to be in the A gap, stay in the A gap. Don't worry about the B gap, because we got somebody in the B gap. For those who don't know what the A gap and B gap is, the A gap is between the center and the guard, and the B gap is between the guard and the tackle. So basically, Dom Caper was all about dot the I's and cross the T's, because he came from Pittsburgh. They had that Blitzburgh defense, and everybody had to be in their gaps in order for that blitz to work. So, all those coaches, I took a little bit of everything. So I would say, it's a connectivity of treating people who they want to be treated like, give them respect, put them in position to utilize their abilities to make plays, but make sure that they dot the I's and cross the T's.
There you have it. And just in case, I don't know if we talked about it before we jumped into this, but you are now heading into year 2 working with Clark Atlanta, giving back to the HBCU community, a community that has seen Deion Sanders, Eddie George. I mean, now more than ever, it feels like it's really being completely reinvigorated with new energy and TV attention, which is great. So that everyone is better off having guys like yourself Dion, people that have that ridiculous level of knowledge, that have played under so many people, that they can finally give back and help these young men grow and get a shot to play at the next level, because it just doesn't happen that often anymore.
It doesn't. And Steve, you hit a lot of great points there. But the main point is the visibility. And like we alluded to, mentor information. It's like the wet in the water. And, whether it's Eddie George, whether it's Dion, they're giving these kids an opportunity to get exposure. And when they do get that exposure, we can tell them, okay, you want to go left. Now you're going to come up to a street sign. It's going to have graffiti on it. Now, what you want to do is slide yourself to the center of the road to make that right turn. Because if you try to make that right turn just like everybody does it, you're going to end up failing. So that's where wisdom and knowledge and understanding, giving back, you're able to tell them exactly how to ace that test. So you're hoping that they can make it, and then they will give back and continue to plant that seed. But to be able to help, man, I'm like, they're hungry. All athletes are hungry, but those who really don't have an opportunity, who feel like they are struggling to even get attention, those are the ones who are really hungry. They're like, I just want an opportunity. Just give me a chance and I show you. So now, not only physically can they make it, but usually it was always the mental that kind of slowed them down. But now having people like Dion, Eddie George, and a whole slew of athletes that have experience to give back their knowledge to these up and coming superstars on and off the field is tremendous, man. Yeah, like they say, it's priceless.
Well, I want to get out on this little thing that I call the gauntlet. Got a couple quick questions for you, but before we hit that, kind of the underlying theme of everything that you do is positivity, helping people, giving them the information. And I know you've been doing that with trying to help people with an app, 2 apps actually. So before we jump into the gauntlet, can you talk a little bit about what you've been working on recently?
Well, again, I have a show. I've been working on that. My show is called Talk and Grind. Talk and Grind. I debate, some of the, shows that, not shows, but stories that are, up and down, but I try to parallel it to life because sometimes people, they look at athletes and think we are superhuman. And actually we're just like you. We're just like the regular people. We just happen to have a gift that we said we want to make better. But we make mistakes, and all of it again falls around principles. Simone Biles, hey, how many of you out there had to make a tough decision? A father had to make a tough decision for your family. A mother make a tough decision. You're tired. You're mentally drained, and you still so. Hey, we're athletes. We get tired too, and sometimes that decision comes at a time when everybody else think we're supposed to be Superman. But I do say Superman, every once in a while, probably the majority of the time, turned into Clark Kent because he just wanted to be normal. But he understood he was Superman. But again, just the Talk and Grind is something that I'm working on, and it also has fitness involved in it because I love fitness. So it's a unique show, and I look forward to that. And of course, the apps. The Bully and Buddy, again, people can go to bullyandbuddy.world if you want more information, and also Stomp and inspire people and motivate people. And social media gives you an opportunity to reach a lot of people.
It absolutely does. I'm certainly one that tries to take as much advantage of that as I possibly can with this show here. And certainly more than happy to help spread the word on Bullying Buddy and Stomp.
Yes. Thank you.
So Tyrone, as we wrap this up, I got a couple quick questions, starting with what's most important? Is it having the number 1 offense or the number 1 defense?
Ooh, as they say, defense wins championships, offense sells tickets. So defense. They can't win, Steve, if they can't score.
That's right. I'm right there with you. Now, I know this is tough to put you on the spot. So many memories, but when you think back on the sports career, do you have any particular one that stands out as your favorite football memory?
Ooh, our as a Patriot, our four downs with the Indianapolis Colts back in '03. Indianapolis Colts with Peyton Manning, Edgerrin James, Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne, Dallas Clark. I think they had a Stokely maybe, but they had four downs, Steve, and we're playing them in Indianapolis. They got four downs to win the game. The guy, I think it was like 38 to 35 at that time. And man, our defense, again, defense win championships. They gave us their four best plays, and our defense rose up four straight times. And all I can see now is Willie McGinnis making that tackle on Edgerrin James in the backfield, and Willie running down, taking his helmet off, man. But man, that was an exciting game, man. So that's probably one of the top highlights.
It's just so funny now thinking that, Edgerrin just going to the Hall of Fame, Peyton going to the Hall of Fame, Marvin's been there. Hopefully we'll see more guys on the Patriots side get into. But it just, to give that moment more context now, it's like there's so many all-time greats that are in that series that it's makes it all the more special.
And it was.
But, we talked about so many of the guys that you played with and against, but being a corner, did you have one or maybe a handful of your favorite matchups, the toughest matchups that you really looked forward to each year?
Ooh, again, Jerry was always a tough one. Jerry Rice, when I was with the Carolina Panthers, playing that dude twice a year. I always thought Isaac Bruce, who just got in. I thought Isaac Bruce was probably one of the best route runners. I'm like, he could break on the out like a dime. I'm like, it's like very quick. Again, Troy Brown. I thought Troy Brown was very good in the slot. Troy give you all, he wasn't going to outrun you. Troy just set you up, then make a little move, and his hands are so strong, man. I just asked Troy one day in practice. I said, man, why your hands so strong? He actually showed me his trick. He says he grabs I think it's a 20-pound ball or weight, and he holds it in his hand. And he just holds it as long as he can to build up his strength. So, of course, I'm like, let me go in there and try it. And, of course, I'm starting with a 10-pound. I'm like, my grip ain't like Troy, man. But I'm like, I had to ask him, man, because Troy can catch the ball, and you can hit his wrist, the ball. That ball ain't going nowhere, man. So, but yeah, Troy, David Givens, and, all them guys, man. So it was a good team.
Now, was there a pregame ritual that you had to stick to?
Oh, yes. I always made sure I had my little energy drink. I would have it in like a 16-ounce bottle. I would mix up some, carbs and protein and stuff, because we burn so much energy, pregame. And you see a lot of guys go out there doing pregame. I never went out on pregame because I'm like, I didn't want to touch that field until it was time for me to go out there, But I would drink my energy drink before we go out for pregame warm-up. And then I would save the other for like halftime. So when we come back in from halftime, I want to put down, the other part of the drink to give me energy for the third and fourth quarter. So my pregame regimen was, I listened to my music, I had my energy drink, and I didn't go out on the football field until it was time for me to go out there. Oh, and I rode the third bus, always rode the third bus to the stadium. So again, I didn't want to be sitting around. Once I got there, wasn't long before I hit that field. So I never liked to ride that first bus. Too early.
Players or scheme, which is most important?
Oh, I think you can have a good scheme and that can help you win. But if you add great players, then it just makes your scheme unstoppable. So I definitely think you got to have the idea first, the scheme first, and then you put the players in second. So I will go with scheme first.
All right. Well, Tyrone, there's been so much that we've covered. If we can
Yes.
end this on one thing, what's the best piece of advice that you'd give?
Ooh, the best piece of advice that I would give and I've received, the only person that can control you is you.
Short, simple, sweet, and right to the point. Tyrone, thank you so much for taking the time. Of course, everyone can follow you on basically every social media channel. What website or any other place would you like to direct everyone's attention to?
Again, I appreciate it, Steve. My foundation, Tyrone Poole 38 Foundation. So, people who want to help me to continue to build champions in every community, locally and around the world. And, I want to get back up to Boston, Massachusetts, New England area and do things there, Carolina, and those areas, teams that I played for. But they can go to Tyrone Poole 38 Foundation.org. Again, it's Tyrone Poole 38 Foundation.org, and they can find out how what I'm doing. They can give their time, they can give their talent, or they can give their treasure. So, but either way, I can't do it by myself, and I can only control me. But it takes a team to win championships. Individual win awards, but team wins championships. So help me build champions in every neighborhood. And also they can go to Tyrone Poole 38, TyronePoole38.com. And if they want to pick up the book, my book, The Ultimate Success in the Game of Life, the book, 12 dynamic principles. And it's not about me, but I feel like life is about principles. And if you can learn the principles of life, then you can create your own experience. You can create your own value. But I do believe that everything that we do has principles. There's a principle to winning Super Bowls. There's a principle to being a great mother, a great father. There are principles to being an A student. So Tyrone Poole 38.com. They can find this book, and this book comes signed when you buy it from me. And the only reason why I tell people to go to my website, Steve, is because when you go to my website, you help me again help others, because I get 100% of the proceeds. Now you can go and buy this book on Amazon, Barnes, whatever internet service you have that can get you to any bookstore. You can get this book there, but go and get it from my website, TyronePoole38.com, and it comes signed. The books that you buy from Amazon and all these other bookstore sites, they do not come signed, but this one comes personally signed when you get it from me. And then again, like I said, you help me help others, get information and build champions, man. Make everybody a champion. Let everybody get some of them trophies back there. Trophy of your life.
Well, I'll do everything I can to help spread the word. But Tyrone, thank you so much for taking the time today. It's been a real pleasure.
Man, Steve, I appreciate you, man. I thank you for everything you're doing. And again, I love your background. I love your show. I love your approach to it, man. It's just one of the best shows that I've been on so far. And I rank you right up there, man. I like your approach. I like your study habits. It's just amazing to have the ability to be on the show with you. So I'll definitely be tuning in and finding out more about what you got going on.
Well, thank you so much for the kind words.